In the hushed silence of the courtroom, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Murmurs of speculation and anticipation rippled through the crowd, but all noise was suddenly drowned by a commanding voice that cut through like a blade. "I'll defend her." The courtroom's gaze snapped toward the source. Standing tall amidst the sea of lawyers and officials was James Carter, a man whose humble appearance belied the fire burning in his eyes. Dressed in a worn but clean janitor's uniform, with rough hands that had seen years of hard work, James was an unlikely hero in this dramatic scene. His voice, raw with emotion and conviction, echoed across the room, demanding attention. The courtroom fell into stunned silence. Unexpected silence, one filled with curiosity and disbelief. Who was this man? Why was a janitor speaking so fiercely in such a formal setting? And what had prompted such a fiery declaration? James took a steadying breath, his heart pounding in his chest. This was not a moment he had prepared for, yet he knew he could not stay silent any longer. His eyes flicked towards the defendant's table, where a young woman named Lily sat trembling, clutching a folded piece of paper. She was only 16, a bright and hopeful girl whose life had been thrown into chaos by the allegations brought against her. Lily's mother had passed away years ago, leaving her in the care of her father. James had always done his best to shield her from the harsh realities of life, working tirelessly at the local sanitation company during the day and moonlighting at a second job at night. His world revolved around Lily's safety and happiness. But now that world was threatening to shatter. The case was about a powerful corporation, Megacorp Industries, accused of contaminating the local water supply, which had allegedly caused a series of health issues among residents, including Lily. The company denied any wrongdoing, claiming their safety measures were sufficient. But to James, the evidence was clear. Corporations like Megacorp cared only about profits, not the people they affected. The judge looked over the courtroom with a measured gaze. The defendant's attorney, a polished lawyer representing Megacorp, was already preparing to object, but the judge held up a hand. Signaling for silence, James stepped forward, his voice steady despite the pounding in his chest. "Your Honor, I may not be a lawyer or a politician, but I know what's right. Lily didn't do anything wrong. She's just a girl trying to stand up for herself, and I won't let her be silenced." A ripple of murmurs spread through the courtroom. Some in the audience looked on with surprise, others with admiration. The judge's eyebrows furrowed as he regarded James. Clearly, this was not the usual courtroom scene. The opposing lawyer quickly attempted to dismiss James's statement, arguing that he was merely a janitor with no standing in the case. But James was undeterred. His voice grew stronger, more resolute, as he continued. "Lily's been brave enough to speak out. I stand here today to say I'll stand with her. I've seen enough to know that corporations like Megacorp put profits over people. If that means I have to speak up, then so be it. I won't let her fight alone." A hush fell again as James's words lingered in the air. For a moment, it felt as if the entire courtroom was holding its collective breath. Here was a man whose life was defined by hard work and quiet sacrifice, suddenly stepping into the spotlight, challenging the powerful. The judge, a seasoned veteran of many courtroom battles, looked at James with a mixture of curiosity and respect. "You've made your stance clear, Mr. Carter. We will consider your words carefully," he said slowly. "But this court must follow the law and the evidence presented." James nodded, his fists clenching briefly before relaxing. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he had done what he believed was right, for Lily, for his community, for justice. As he stepped back into his seat, the courtroom erupted into a mixture of reactions. Some whispered about his bravery. Others doubted his influence. But James didn't care about their opinions. All that mattered was that he had spoken loud enough for everyone to hear him, that maybe, just maybe, he had planted a seed of hope. Outside the courtroom, as the day wore on, news of James's declaration spread throughout the town. People began to see him not just as a janitor, but as a symbol of courage. A man who, despite the odds stacked against him, found his voice and refused to stay silent. Later that evening, Lily approached James in their modest home. Her eyes shone, with gratitude and newfound strength. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered, clutching his hand. "You really stood up for me." James looked down at her, a humble smile crossing his face. "I did it for you, kiddo. No matter what happens in that courtroom, I want you to know that I'll always be here to defend you against anything and anyone." And as they sat together, in quiet solidarity, the world outside continued to turn. But within that small home, a quiet but powerful victory had already been won. For Lily, for James, and for everyone who believed that even the smallest voice could make a difference. *** Section 2. The Heart of a Father. ***. It was a quiet evening when Lily came home. Her face streaked with tears, clutching a crumpled letter in her trembling hands. James was in the kitchen, finishing up his late shift cleaning tables at the diner, when he noticed her standing there, eyes swollen and cheeks red. His heart immediately tensed with concern. "Lily, sweetheart, what's wrong?" James asked softly, setting down his rag. She hesitated for a moment before holding out the letter. "It's from my school," she whispered, voice trembling. They denied my scholarship." James took the letter carefully, his eyes scanning the official letterhead. The words blurred in front of him, but he could see the denying tone, citing a supposed error on her application. His brow furrowed as he read the details. But beneath the bureaucratic language, something else gnawed at him, a sense that this wasn't just a mistake. It felt personal. He looked up at Lily, who was now crying softly, her small shoulders shaking. "Why? Why would they do this?" she asked, voice breaking. James's jaw clenched. They knew Lily's academic record was exemplary, straight A's. Leadership awards, community service. She was the kind of student every parent dreams of. And yet, somehow, her application had been rejected. He remembered the day Lily had submitted her scholarship application. It was meticulous proofread multiple times, carefully compiled. He also remembered the wealthy CEO, Richard Sterling, whose daughter was a top contender for the same scholarship. Sterling's influence was well known in the town. His company, Sterling Industries, was a major employer, and his power extended into nearly every aspect of local life. James's mind raced. Could it have been a coincidence? Or had Sterling's influence been used to tilt the scales unfairly? Looked down at Lily, her trembling form. His love for her surged like a tidal wave. He was just a janitor, an ordinary man who had worked tirelessly to provide for her. He didn't have a fancy lawyer, a bank account full of money, or political connections. But he had something far more powerful: love and a fierce sense of justice. "I'm going to fix this," he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. "We're going to find out what really happened." That night, James began gathering evidence. He remembered the application process, the documents Lily had submitted, and the email correspondence. He contacted the school's administration, but they were unhelpful, brushing him off with bureaucratic politeness. Frustration and helplessness threatened, too, to overwhelm him. Then he reached out to a local legal aid organization that offered pro bono services for cases like theirs. To his surprise, they took an interest in Lily's case. A young lawyer named Emily, compassionate and sharp, listened carefully to James's story. "Mr. Carter," she said, "after reviewing the documents, it's clear there's suspicion here. An error on her application might be genuine, but the timing and the circumstances, especially considering Sterling's influencer's questions, we're willing to help you challenge this." James felt a flicker of hope. He knew he wasn't a lawyer, but his conviction was unshakable. With Emily's expertise and the support of the community, many of whom believed in Lily's innocence, they began to prepare for a legal battle. In the meantime, James started talking to neighbors, teachers, and friends. The community was beginning to rally around Lily, recognizing the injustice of the situation. Someone set up a petition demanding a fair review of her application, which quickly gained hundreds of signatures. Despite the mounting support, James knew the fight wouldn't be easy. Rich and powerful people like Richard Sterling didn't shy away from using their influence to silence opposition. Still, he refused to back down. Every night after working long hours, James sat at the small kitchen table, poring over legal papers, notes, and testimonies. His hands, roughed from years of hard labor, trembled slightly as he clutched a photo of Lily, her bright smile shining through the tears. One evening, Emily called him with good news. "We've gathered enough evidence to challenge the decision. We're filing an appeal, and I believe we have a strong case. But we have to act quickly." James nodded, feeling a renewed sense of determination. "Thank you, Emily. I just want my girl to have a fair shot. That's all I've ever wanted." The days that followed felt like a whirlwind. The community's support grew, with local newspapers picking up Lily's story and calling for justice. The town was divided. Some whispered that Sterling's influence was too great to challenge. Others believed that. When it was his turn to speak, James stepped forward, voice steady and clear. "Your Honor," he began, "I may not have a fancy degree or a lot of money, but I have something that no one can take away: my love for my daughter and my sense of justice. I stand here today to ask for fairness, for truth, and for Lily's right to succeed." The courtroom was silent as James's words hung in the air. The judge looked at him with a thoughtful expression, recognizing the strength of a simple man's resolve. In that moment, James knew that no matter what the outcome, he had already won a victory, one that extended beyond the courtroom walls. He had shown Lily and everyone watching that a father's love and courage could challenge even the most formidable foes. And as he took his seat, Lily reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. Together they faced the uncertain future, bound by love and an unbreakable belief in justice. Asterisk, asterisk. Section 3. The battle begins. Asterisk, asterisk. The courtroom was packed on the day of the hearing. James, in his modest suit, stood out among the sea of expensive attire. Richard Sterling, the CEO, sat with a smirk, confident in his team of high-paid lawyers. As the proceedings began, it became clear that the corporation intended to dismiss James's claims as frivolous. But James was undeterred. When called to the stand, he spoke from the heart, recounting the sleepless nights and hard work he and Lily had put into her education. He presented evidence of the application era, deliberate manipulation to disqualify her. The sincerity in his voice touched everyone present. Certainly, here's an expanded version of the story, elaborating on the scene, characters, and emotions to reach approximately 1,000 words. Asterisk, asterisk. Section 3. The battle begins. Asterisk, asterisk. The courtroom was a hive of quiet anticipation, the air thick with whispered conversations and the faint rustling of papers. Rows of wooden benches were filled with spectators, journalists, legal assistants, and curious onlookers, all eager to witness the unfolding drama. At the front, behind a modest wooden desk, James stood quietly, adjusting his uncertain grip on the folder in his hands. Despite his humble appearance, worn but clean suit, slightly wrinkled from the long wait, there was a determined fire in his eyes that set him apart from the sea of polished, expensive attire surrounding him. Across the courtroom, Richard Sterling, the CEO of Sterling Industries, sat comfortably in a leather chair. His face was a picture of confidence, chiseled features, perfectly groomed beard, and a smirk that seemed to say he had already won the battle before it had begun. His team of high-powered lawyers sat beside him, whispering quietly, their eyes occasionally flicking towards James with a mixture of disdain and amusement. The judge, a stern-looking woman with sharp eyes and an air of authority, called the court to order. Her voice was clear and commanding as she addressed the room. "This hearing is now in session. We are here to hear the claims brought forth by Mr. James Carter concerning the educational scholarship denial of Miss Lily Carter. Counsel, you may proceed." The lawyer representing Sterling Industries, a slick man with a practiced smile, rose confidently. "Your Honor, we maintain that the claims made by Mr. Carter are frivolous and without merit. The application process was transparent. Miss Carter was disqualified due to legitimate reasons that are detailed in our documentation. We ask that this baseless case be dismissed." James felt his stomach tighten. He had prepared for this moment, had anticipated the dismissive tone and the dismissive words. but hearing them spoken out loud still sent a ripple of unease through him. His hands trembled slightly as he clutched the folder, filled with notes, photographs, and copies of the application forms. He knew he had to stay calm, to speak from the heart. When his name was called, James took a deep breath and stepped forward, approaching the witness stand. As he settled into the chair, the courtroom suddenly seemed quieter, the weight of everyone's gaze pressing down on him. "Please state your full name for the record," the judge prompted. "James Carter," he replied, voice steady despite the pounding. "Of his heart? Mr. Carter, you may proceed with your testimony." James looked directly at the judge, then shifted his gaze to the courtroom. He hesitated for a moment, gathering his thoughts. Then he began to speak not as a lawyer, but as a father who believed in his daughter's future. "My name is James Carter. I am Lily's father. I'm here today because I believe my daughter was wrongfully disqualified from the scholarship application. Lily worked tirelessly, studying late into the night, sacrificing weekends and family outings to prepare her application. She was genuinely passionate about her education, and we followed all the guidelines provided." His voice grew stronger as he recounted their journey. "When Lily submitted her application, we double-checked everything: her transcripts, recommendation letters, essays. But a few days later, we received a notification that her application was rejected. No explanation was given, just a generic message saying she was ineligible." He paused, swallowing the lump in his throat. I knew something wasn't right. So, I started to dig into the matter. That's when I discovered the application error that was not accidental but deliberately manipulated by someone within the system to disqualify Lily. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. The lawyer for Sterling Industries looked momentarily thrown off. Exchanging glances with his colleagues, James continued, voice steady. "I have evidence screenshots of the application portal showing discrepancies, emails from the application system indicating tampering, and witness statements from the volunteers who assisted Lily. All point to a manipulation designed to exclude her unfairly." He reached into his folder and pulled out a series of photographs and printed emails, handing them to the court clerk to be marked as exhibits. "This is the application form Lily submitted," he said, pointing to a copy. "And here's a screenshot of the system error message that appeared during her submission, which was later altered." The judge scrutinized the evidence, then nodded slowly. "Mr. Carter, are you claiming that this was a deliberate act by someone within Sterling Industries?" James nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. I believe someone on the inside, perhaps someone with access to the application system, manipulated the process to disqualify Lily." The courtroom was silent for a moment. Then Richard Sterling leaned forward, a hint of a smirk returning to his face. "Your Honor, this is a classic case of a desperate father trying to tarnish our reputation with baseless allegations. We deny any involvement in such manipulation. This is a matter of an honest, transparent process." The lawyer for Sterling Industries then began to object, but the judge raised her hand for silence. "We will examine the evidence carefully. Mr. Carter, do you have any witnesses to support your claims?" James hesitated briefly, then nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. I have 2 witnesses. A volunteer was assisting with the application process and can confirm the irregularities. And Lily herself, who can testify to her experience and the system error." The judge nodded. "Very well. We'll hear from them after the break." As the courtroom adjourned for a short recess, James felt a mixture of exhaustion and cautious hope. He had spoken from the heart, and it seemed to have made an impact. The images, the words, everything was laid bare. Yet he knew the fight was far from over. Richard Sterling's smirk was a reminder that this was a battle for justice, and he would need to remain steadfast. When the court reconvened, Lily took the stand, her small frame trembling slightly, but her voice clear and unwavering. She recounted her efforts, her dreams, and her shock at discovering her. Section 4. The unexpected turn **** as the lawyers exchanged arguments. Seemed like a losing battle for James. But then something unexpected happened. Richard Sterling, the CEO, requested to speak. The room tensed as he approached the stand too. Everyone's shock. Sterling admitted to the manipulation. "I was wrong," he confessed, his voice steady but remorseful. I let ambition cloud my judgment. James, your bravery and dedication have opened my eyes. The courtroom buzzed with disbelief. Sterling proposed not only to reinstate Lily's scholarship, but also to fund a new program supporting underprivileged students. It was an unprecedented move, one that left both sides stunned, certainly. Here's an expanded version of asterisk section 4. The unexpected turn, elaborating on the scene, emotions, and implications to reach approximately 1,000 words. Section 4. The unexpected turn, The courtroom was thick with tension as the lawyers on both sides volleyed their arguments back. And fourth, James sat rigidly, clutching the edge of the witness stand, watching every word with a mixture of hope and despair. The judge's gavel occasionally echoed through the silent room, each strike signaling the weight of the proceedings. The atmosphere was charged, every face in the room eager for clarity, for justice, for answers. Richard Sterling's lawyer had just finished a meticulous presentation, emphasizing the integrity of Sterling Industries' application process and dismissing James's evidence as circumstantial. Sterling's team had painted a picture of fairness and transparency, and the courtroom seemed to lean in their favor. James felt the walls closing in, the feeling that he was fighting a losing battle mounting with every passing minute. Suddenly, the courtroom doors swung open with a commanding presence. Richard Sterling himself stepped forward, his expression calm but with a flicker of something deeper. Perhaps regret, perhaps resolve. Murmurs rippled through the room as the CEO of Sterling Industries approached the witness stand. His every step deliberate, everyone's gaze fixed on him. The room seemed to hold its breath. "Mr. Sterling," the judge prompted, "you may speak." Sterling paused briefly, then looked around the courtroom. His eyes settled on James, who watched with cautious anticipation. Then, with surprising clarity and conviction, Sterling began to speak. "I am here today not just as the CEO of Sterling Industries, but as a man who has made a terrible mistake," he said, his voice steady and resonant. "I want to admit something that I should have acknowledged from the beginning. I was wrong." A collective gasp swept through the courtroom. The judge's eyebrows lifted slightly, and even the lawyers looked at each other in disbelief. Sterling continued, "I allowed my ambition and desire to protect the company's reputation to cloud my judgment. When I heard about Lily Carter's application, I saw an opportunity, an easy way to dismiss a potential problem. I ordered the manipulation of her application, and I regret it deeply." The words hung heavy in the air. James's eyes widened. In shock, the other spectators stared in stunned silence. The courtroom was frozen, an unthinkable confession from a man of Sterling's stature. "I take full responsibility for my actions," Sterling went on. "It was a mistake, born out of pride and fear of scandal. I thought I was protecting the integrity of the process, but I was only protecting my own interests. I see now that I was wrong. Lily Carter deserved a fair chance, and I failed her." Room erupted into murmurs, some in disbelief, others in awe. The judge looked at Sterling with a mixture of sternness and consideration. The legal team from Sterling Industries looked visibly shaken. James stared at Sterling, his mind racing. For a moment, he wondered if this was some kind of elaborate deception, some ploy to avoid repercussions. But Sterling's voice was genuine. The remorse in his eyes seemed authentic. "I want to make things right," Sterling continued, voice trembling slightly. "I am willing to do whatever it takes to rectify this injustice, not just for Lily, but for all the students who have been unfairly treated. I propose that Lily's scholarship be reinstated immediately. And I will personally fund a new program aimed at supporting underprivileged students who face systemic barriers." A stunned silence followed his words. No one had expected such a dramatic shift, least of all James. The judge's eyes narrowed as she processed the confession and proposal. "Mr. Sterling," she said carefully, "this is a serious admission. Are you truly prepared to accept responsibility and make these commitments?" Sterling nodded firmly. "Yes, Your Honor, I am. I realize now that true leadership involves humility and integrity. I want to set an example not just for my company, but for the community." If my actions can serve as a lesson, then I am willing to accept whatever consequences come, as long as justice is served. The courtroom remained silent for a moment, then erupted into murmurs and whispers. Some people looked at Sterling with newfound respect. Others looked skeptical. James, overwhelmed, felt a strange mixture of shock and cautious hope. After all, this was an unprecedented turn of events. The judge finally raised her gavel, calling for order. This is indeed a remarkable development. Mr. Sterling's admission and proposal are noted. I will take this into consideration as I deliberate. However, the court's primary concern remains the fairness of the process and the rights of the applicant. She paused, glancing at James, Lily, and Sterling. Given this new information, I will order that Lily Carter's application be reconsidered immediately and that her scholarship be reinstated pending further review. Additionally, the court will oversee the establishment of the new program Mr. Sterling has proposed. A collective sigh of relief swept through the courtroom. James felt a surge of hope. This unexpected turn had shifted the entire landscape. Sterling's apology and offer to make amends cast a new light on the case, transforming it from a simple legal dispute into a moment of moral reckoning. Lily, sitting quietly in the witness box, looked up at her father with wide eyes. Her face was a mixture of shock, gratitude, and disbelief. She had never imagined that her fight would lead to such an extraordinary outcome, one where the very person responsible for her injustice was now offering to help change the system. As Sterling stepped down from the stand and returned to his seat, he caught James's eye and nodded subtly, a silent gesture of apology and reconciliation. James nodded back, feeling the weight of years of frustration and helplessness lifting, if only slightly. The judge addressed the courtroom once more. Given the gravity of this situation and the sincerity of Mr. Sterling's statements, I am inclined to accept his proposal. The court will order the immediate reinstatement of Lily Carter's scholarship and the establishment of the new educational support program. Further details will be finalized in the coming days. The courtroom erupted into applause. Some spectators clapped. Others nodded quietly, acknowledging the extraordinary turn of events. As the session adjourned, James approached Lily and Sterling. The father, daughter, and now reformed CEO shared a moment of silent understanding, an unspoken acknowledgement that even in the darkest moments, the truth and integrity could prevail. The courtroom, which had once seemed a battleground of legal and moral conflicts, now held the promise of hope. A man had admitted his wrongs. A young girl's future was secured. And a new chapter of justice and compassion was beginning, one that would resonate beyond this courtroom, inspiring others to stand for what is right. Would you like me to continue the story further, or expand on specific characters or scenes?